An excerpt from the pages of Glen Cook's The Black Company. In Chapter 5. They were off, and damned be the fool who got in their way. Shadows scattered around One Eye, wriggling across the earth like 1,000 hasty serpents. Ghosts danced crawling from under rocks, jumping down from trees, hopping out of bushes. The latter squealed and howled and giggled and chased One Eye's shadow snakes. The ghosts stood 2 feet tall, and very much resembled half-pint One-Eyes, with double ugly faces, and behinds like those of a female baboon in season. What they did with captured shadow snakes, taste forbids me tell. One-Eye, foiled, leapt into the air. He cursed, shrieked, foamed at the mouth. To us old hands, who had witnessed these hatter-mad battles before, it was obvious that Goblin had been laying in the weeds, waiting for One Eye to start something. This was one time when One Eye had more than a lone bolt to shoot. He banished the snakes. The rocks, bushes, and trees that had belched Goblin's critters now disgorged gigantic, glossy green dung beetles. The big bugs jumped Goblin's elves, rolled them right up, and began tumble-bugging them toward the edge of the cliff. Needless to say, all the whoop and holler drew an audience. Laughter ripped out of us old hands, long familiar with this endless duel. It spread to the others once they realized this was not sorcery run amok. Goblin's red-bottomed ghosts sprouted roots and refused to be tumbled. They grew into huge, drooling-mawed carnivorous plants, fit to inherit the cruelest jungle of nightmare. Clickety-clackety-crunch. All across the slope, carapax broke between closing vegetable jaws. That spine-shaking, tooth-grinding feeling you get when you crunch a big cockroach slithered across the slopes, magnified 1,000 times, birthing a plague of shudders. For a moment, even One Eye remained motionless. I glanced around. The captain had come to watch. He betrayed a satisfied smile. It was a precious gem, that smile, rarer than roc's eggs. His companions, regular officers and guard captains, appeared baffled. Someone took up position beside me, at an intimate, comradely distance. I glanced sideways, found myself shoulder to shoulder with Soul Catcher. Or elbow to shoulder. The Taken does not stand very tall. "Amusing, yes?" he said in one of his 1,000 voices. I nodded nervously. One Eye shuddered all over, jumping high in the air again. Wailed and howled, then went down kicking and flopping like a man with the falling sickness. The surviving beetles rushed together, zip-zap, clackety-clack, into 2 seething piles, clacking their mandibles angrily, scraping against one another chitinously. Brown smog wriggled from the piles in thick ropes, twisted and joined, became a curtain concealing the frenzied bugs. The smoke contracted into globulus, which bounced, bounding higher after each contact with the earth. Then they did not come down, but rather drifted on the breeze, sprouting what grew into gnarly digits. What we had here were replicas of One Eye's horny paws 100 times life-size. Those hands went weed-plucking through Goblin's monster garden, ripping his plants up by the roots, knotting their stems together in elegant, complicated sailor's knots, forming an ever-elongating braid. "They do have more talent than one would suspect," Soulcatcher observed, "but so wasted on frivolity." "I don't know," I gestured. The show was having an invigorating effect on morale. Feeling a breath of that boldness which animates me at odd moments, I suggested, "This is a sorcery they can appreciate, unlike the oppressive, bitter wizardries of the Taken." Catcher's black morion faced me for a few seconds. I imagined fires burning behind the narrow eye slits. Then a girlish giggle slipped forth. "You're right. We're so filled with doom and gloom and brooding and terror we infect whole armies. One soon forgets the emotional panorama of life." How odd, I thought. This was a Taken with a chink in its armor, a Soul Catcher drawing aside one of the veils concealing its secret being. The analyst in me caught the scent of a tail and begun to bay. Catcher sidestepped me as though reading my thoughts. "You had a visitation last night?" The analyst hound's voice died in mid-cry. "I had a strange dream." "About the lady?" Catcher chuckled, a deep bass rumble. That constant changing of voices can rattle the most stolid of men. It put me on the defensive. His very comradeliness, too, disturbed me. I think she favors you, Croca. Some little thing about you has captured her imagination, just as she has caught yours. What did she have to say? Something way back told me to be careful. Catcher's query was warm and offhand, yet there was a hidden intensity there which said that the question was not at all casual. Just reassurances, I replied. Something about the stare of Tyr not being all that critical to her scheme. But it was only a dream. Of course. He seemed satisfied. Only a dream. But the voice was the female one he used when he was most serious. The men were oohing and awing. I turned to check the progress of the contest. Goblin's skein of pitcher plants had transmogrified into a huge airborne man-of-war jellyfish. The brown hands were entangled in its tentacles, trying to tear themselves free. And over the cliff face, observing, floated a giant pink face, bearded, surrounded by tangled orange hair. One eye was half closed sleepily by a livid scar. I frowned, baffled. What's that? I knew it was not any doing of goblins or one-eyes, and wondered if Silent had joined the game, just to show them up. Soulcatcher made a sound that was a credible imitation of a bird's dying squawk. "Harden!" he said, and whirled to face the captain, bellowing, "To arms! They come!" In seconds, men were flying toward their positions. The last hint of the struggle between Goblin and One-Eye became misty tatters floating on the wind, drifting toward the leering, hardened face, giving it a loathsome case of acne where they touched. A cute fillip, I thought. But don't try to take him heads up, boys. He won't play games. The answer to our scramble was a lot of horn blowing from below, and a grumble of drums which echoed in the canyons like distant thunder. The rebel poked at us all day, but it was obvious that he was not serious, that he was just prodding the hornet's nest to see what would happen. He was well aware of the difficulty of storming the stair, all of which portended Harden having something nasty up his sleeve. Overall, though, the skirmishes boosted morale. The men began to believe there was a chance they could hold. The first novel of the Black Company series. Some feel the lady, newly risen from centuries in thrall, stands between humankind and evil. Some feel she is evil itself. The hard-bitten men of the Black Company take their pay and do what they must, burying their doubts with their dead. Until the prophecy, the White Rose has been reborn somewhere to embody good once more. There must be a way for the Black Company to find her. Full audiobook recording in the works.